This podcast is sponsored by Intentional Living Magazine, your ultimate guide created to help infuse purpose and passion into your everyday life. From expert features that provide valuable insights to thought-provoking content that sparks transformation, this magazine, an online platform, is a perfect source of inspiration for all of those of us who truly believe in the power of intentional choices.
Where do we start with this one? This is me interviewing my pal, Jules, on a topic that has been very prevalent in her life in the last 7 years. And I suggested, after a post on social media turning into a blog and a lot of people commenting and asking Jules for help and points of view on what had happened to her, I thought we should do a podcast on it, and Jules agreed. So get comfy, get your cup of tea, get your cup of coffee and listen in to what is an inspiring story, but also a really challenging story. So thank you. Enjoy. Any questions you have on this, please feel free to send them in. Hello.
Hello, beautiful.
We're going to do an up close and personal one today, aren't we?
Yeah, I can already feel the anxiety in my chest.
Oh, can you? Okay. Well, this one is, we decided to do this one. I suggested to do this
A few weeks
back because it's a personal one of Jules's, that something has happened so many years back, and more information has come back up again in the last couple of months, and Jules decided to write a post about it. And that post on social media then turned into a blog, and it got a lot of people messaging you and commenting on the post because they didn't realise what had happened to you in that time. And we've both had a lot of private messages in the meantime from people who are going through something similar.
And people we don't even know.
And people that we don't even know who've seen and read the blog, saying, I'm in a similar position, or I've been in a similar position. I don't know what to do. Can you please help me? And I'm lost. So I suggested to Jules, I said, you know what? Because I was getting messages from people who I know, obviously they've seen that your post is connected to me, and saying, would I be able to speak to Jules? I feel like she might be able to help me. And I was like, right, okay. Jules has been inundated with messages about this, and as a 5 energy, she's very much around helping others and problem solving, but she also needs to take care of herself. So I was like the guard dog going, no, you're not gonna, you can't keep speaking to people. You've got your own stuff to do and your own life going on. So I said, let's do a podcast where I interview you about the situation. So that's where this post is stemmed from. So this is to help anyone that has been through a similar situation, or going through a similar situation, or to maybe avoid going through a similar situation with regards to what we're going to talk about. So we'll just take this as a natural conversation, because I knew what was going on in the background. I didn't know to the full extent, but obviously us being friends and business pals, we're in each other's pockets all the time, aren't we? So we know what's going on with each other. And it wasn't until a few weeks ago when you wrote the post and the article that I was like, wow, I didn't realise how bad it was and how you got through it. So
yeah, I didn't realise either. Well, I did realise, but I suppose you go into functional freeze, don't you? And well, I didn't. I had a breakdown, so that was the culmination of a lot of stress. But something then happened that triggered me to respond, and that was an email hit my inbox, and I'd forgotten, not forgotten about it. You'll never forget about it. But it's kind of in the past. It's like 7 years gone. Yeah. And then something popped up, and it just brought it all back. Okay. It's almost like It's all the stuff that we teach. It's all, all of the work that we've done. I've done so much work. But again, we're never a finished article, and there's definitely still a lot of work for me to do around this. But it has made me sort of, lots of different reflections have come up that are clearly related, that still need to be dealt with.
So, okay, well, let's start with...
Pardon me, I've just had lunch.
We did have a really nice lunch in the Courtroom in Liverpool. So let's start off with what... I want you to speak about what happened. What was it that triggered you in the email box? I want you to start there, and then we're going to go back to the very beginning. So what triggered you to write the post, and tell us in a nutshell what the post was about, but then then the story can come from that.
Okay, so the email came from a governing body that I'd raised a complaint about someone to for 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then because of shortage of staff, because of COVID, because of all the things, it had only just come to light 5 years later. And the decision was to uphold the complaint, and that what we were complaining about was seen and acknowledged as us being right. And after having such a hard time, just to have that piece of paper that goes, oh my God, 5 years on, and we were right, and hardly anyone knows about it.
Yeah.
Because our integrity and was just put into huge question by other people with money, with influence, and the shock of all that just made me go into protection mode. So actually, just didn't tell anybody, didn't speak about it, just went into survival. But that email then went, holy shit. They say that every dog has its day, and karma's always working in the background. And you might not necessarily, and I've always said this, you might not necessarily get to see it.
Yeah.
But every dog has the day. And 5 years later, somebody is now having to be made responsible for their actions, which they obviously thought they had got away with scot-free, and didn't give us a second thought, but destroyed our life. And yeah, boy, oh bang.
And if you do want to get emotional, get emotional. Have we got any tissues? We might need some.
Just bog roll, do.
So I've another question's just come in. And one is, that took 5 years. Did you ever think it was going to come in, or did you just think, oh, that's it, nothing's ever going to come back?
No, I didn't think anything would ever come back from it, because what I've learned over the last 7 years is that a lot of governing bodies are just tick boxes, and they protect their own.
Yeah.
Because we did the same with Financial Services Authority, with somebody else, and they literally don't want to know because it's too much like hard work, and they are effectively biting the hand that feeds them. Yeah. So it's almost like you can I'm a one energy. So I've got the information, I've got the facts, I've got the proof, I've got it all. And no matter what, some big brother is going, nah. Come back with some nah. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I hadn't even given it any thought. I just thought, right, do you know what? It's done. Put to bed, move on.
Yeah.
Put it down to experience. But then when that came back, I thought, God, yeah. And it's obviously come back for a reason, Claire, because why would it? This is obviously stuff that I've still got to deal with. And whilst it's not nice, it's part of the process. And I've got to go through it.
For me, I think it's a good thing to know that you've been acknowledged.
Yeah, of course.
I know it's been 5 years, but it's been acknowledged, and someone has got the decency and integrity to see through that, and it is somebody's job. So I don't know. There's hope there in these type of authorities. So hopefully that there's decent people in there who can spot when things are done wrong, and these type of people will be outed because it's not right.
So that none of that will mean anything to anybody listening
right now. But we're gonna dig into.
But it was to be honest, I even wrote to them this week to say, because they give you a helpline number for victim helpline, and I thought, I'm not a victim.
It's probably not the right word.
I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. Yeah. I'm a bloody warrior. But it has hit me hard. It hit me hard, and it shocked me how hard it's hit me.
Okay. So I'll be crying with you in a minute.
I know you will.
But this is good. This is good tears, because this is what
it's got to come out.
Yeah, it's got to come out. And okay, so let's go back to the beginning of what it actually was. How far do you want to go back? Do you want us to go back to the start of it's a business?
So my husband had a nervous breakdown in was it about 2006? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. I was 5. Yeah, so about 2006, and he had corporate burnout, and so he spent some time just getting well and finding something that he wanted to do, and he retrained in a few things, and then he met a few people. He met a lady that looked after young kids with brain injuries, and he went. I don't even know how it happened, but he went to this home, and he was just blown away by this house with this service for these kids, and it gave him the idea that he wanted, rather than just chasing the dollar, and because he'd been in sales for like 100 years, and you know what it's like. We've got targets, we've got this, that, and we've got the knobheads that go, let's blue sky this shit, and let's all of that crap. And Mark is just not that person. He's just not. And so he wanted to do something good. So he decided that he was going to open a home. I was like, well, what do you know about that? Nothing. But the passion and the enthusiasm for it. And literally on the back of a fag packet, he came up with a proposal and went out and found funding and did it. And he bought an old school house and converted it into a 10-bed home for young people with acquired brain injury. And I swear to God, it nearly broke him. Well, it probably did break him, to be fair. But we remortgaged our house. Half the furniture out of our house was in the home. Our kids grew up pretty much, it's part and parcel. So literally it was work, sleep at home, go back. And they opened this home. Anyway, cut a long story short, 2014, I went into the business. So Mark created the business. It was great. And the passion and the drive was there. I went in to pull the carpet up and put the processes in so that it was...
Julify it.
Yeah, make it so that it was investable, because there's a massive need for the services, but there's wooden dollars battle between health and social care about who's going to fund it, and the people need to be looked after, but then nobody wants to pay for it. Yeah. So we went through all that whole process. Anyway, got it into a really strong position. We had 2 homes. We were working on our 3rd home. We then wanted to get rid of buy out our old investors by bringing in new investment. And we had a guy, I don't know what you call him, a corporate finance man, who introduced us to this investor, and he decided that he wanted to invest. And he came with his backstory that his daughter's husband's brother had an acquired brain injury, so got it. And we were very much of, this isn't about, we will never sacrifice care and levels of care for profit. Just won't happen. Yeah, this is what we want. And we had I think it was a 3-year deal. I think it was a 3-year deal, 3 or 4 years, where they were going to invest the money, we were going to pay it back. Jobs are good and done. And then after a few months, they started getting involved and started making payments back to the bank for a loan that we'd had and think, hang on a minute, well, why are they doing that? Because we've taken the investment, we've given equity so that we can grow, and he's giving the money back. Didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So there was a few things that happened, and we challenged him, the investor, and because we challenged him and obviously didn't want to be challenged. And I remember the couple of days before we went on holiday in 2017, he paid that much back that he'd left us without the money to pay the staff. Now, under CQC regulations,
Care Quality Commission,
the Care Quality Commission, we're looking after really vulnerable people. We have to pay for the staff, otherwise there's a risk, right? So then we had to go cap in hand to him and say, we need the money to pay the staff. And it was almost like a big hoo-ha. We went on holiday. We were in the process of about to open a new home. And what we found out since, so this was where the picture that came with the post, we arrived on holiday pretty broken. And there was a picture of me and the kids stood in the sea in the dark. And I'd been to the doctors that morning. I had really bad palpitations. I already had fibromyalgia. Yeah. And when I talked about this in the past, I talked about this period of extreme stress. And this was the period of extreme stress where basically Mark was jumping through hoops. And I didn't, and this is a big learning thing for me. I'm great if I'm interested in something, but if I'm not, I have nothing to do with it. So the finances didn't ever really matter because I knew that was being dealt with. In hindsight, I should have been all over it because if I had, I'd have been able to support Mark more in that whole dialogue piece. Anyway, as soon as we were out of the country, we didn't know this then, but they were there trying to get us out, but all of them together.
When you say all of them together?
So basically we've got a director of, so our company was small, we had 120 staff, but the management team was me, Mark, and the director of care and nursing, plus this guy who was
the investor or the financial.
No, he's the financial. He was our non-exec director, so should have been
a neutral.
Yeah. So, so what happened was that we went on holiday, and then the day before we came home, we got an email in our inbox to say that we'd been suspended pending investigation for gross misconduct of our own organisation. When I say it was our own, we'd obviously had shareholders in, so it wasn't all our own, but it was the business that we built and that we'd remortgaged our home for and all of the rest of it. And we were like, what? And because we challenged, right? So you challenge someone and you go, this can't be right. So we were straight onto our friend who was a lawyer and he went, Jesus, he's gone nuclear. So we were literally to report the next day, the day we got back from holidays, to a solicitor's office in Manchester where this investigation was going to start. And I was hyperventilating. I was already pretty messed up before I went on beta blockers. So I didn't have an amazing holiday. I had this anxiety the whole time. And that was like the final straw. So by the time I got home, I started on this. I don't even know how I got on the flight. I literally phoned the doctors from the airport to say, I have to come. I have to come. So I have to. So I literally...
What were you hoping what did you want from the doctors?
I've no idea. I've no idea, but I just was like in this whole fuck. So my dad picked me up, couldn't speak. My dad had rang us to say that two contractors that we had working for him had phoned my dad to say, I've just heard that Mark and Jules have been suspended. And my dad went, what? So dad rang me and we went, what? And that's when we found the thing.
Oh my God.
So all that had happened. So we got home, I went to the doctors, told them what had happened, antidepressants, beta block, the whole shebang. Anyway, went on to have this full breakdown, but they went through this process. So Mark went, I said, I can't go, I can't string a sentence together. And they'd basically come up with about 50 things for Mark that he'd potentially stolen or misappropriated funds, or we were like, what? So what's it? It was just and really obviously, well, not unbelievable, but obviously it was It was just all bollocks.
Yeah.
But the law doesn't protect you from that happening, right? The law, if you follow through with the steps that you have to take, is there to protect, to put you back to where you would have been had the offence not happened, right? So it's a bit like when people, if someone got murdered, no one would go, well, you couldn't do that. Well, it doesn't stop somebody being murdered.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So we had to fight. We had to fight it. So that was August. By, I think it was like 10th of October, something like that. We'd been sacked.
2017.
2017, yeah, we'd been sacked. I was sacked. Get ready for this. I was sacked for stealing a throw that I'd bought for one of the homes that they couldn't find anywhere.
I know you love a throw, but I don't think you're going to steal one, babe. But do you say? Yeah.
I'm not being. So all of the stuff that they said, bearing in mind most of our whole contents of our house had been in one of the homes at one point in time. A throw.
Wow.
Like, wow. So, and then Mark had loads of stuff, and I was going, well, what? So I was trying to help, but kind of wasn't with it. But I'm
trying
the
to make
organised
sense
one,
of it.
so it's almost like get all the paperwork together. And every time a letter dropped through the mailbox, I was just like it. I was just a mess. I was literally like rocking, sat in the conservatory. The kids were like, couldn't get the kids to school. There was all that going on. Alfie was going through a really bad time. He really struggled with depression through all of that.
How old was Alfie at the time?
He'll have been, it was 2000, he would have been 17. And so we got counselling for him. And I was just, I was just a mess. So I ended up going to the DWP and said, I can't work. And I'd never claimed benefits before in my life. But it was almost like a permission slip. I mean, the money was fuck all, really, in the scheme of things, but we had a mortgage to pay, we had the kids to feed and all the rest of it. So we claimed benefits, and then I had to go to be assessed to see if I was actually ill. And I remember Mark driving me. How Mark kept it together, I've no idea. But he did, because we're a bit of a tag team. So we can't, it's all like going out, one can get really pissed but not the other one, because we've got to make sure one of us gets home. It was almost like that. He had no choice, he had to hold it together. So he drove me to this 1960s building in Crewe, and I was like an old lady, and I had to take all my tablets, and at the time I was just on so many opiates, I was like jangling. So I had to present to this unit for assessment, and I arrived with shuffling. And there was cameras outside, and it was just awful. And then you had to report to reception. They were running late, and there was a guy in the waiting room in a wheelchair with a bloody big oxygen tank attached to his face. And then there was another guy with no legs, and me. And I'm thinking, this is what we have to jump through hoops to prove that we're not capable to work. Anyway, I was sat there. I fell asleep in the waiting room like that. So I went in. I had to sit through this assessment. They had to ask me questions and all the rest of it. They literally, and then the report came a couple of weeks later to say that I was fit for fuck all, basically. So there's different levels of disability. I was just classified as disabled and unfit to work for at least 12 months. But in the report, it was almost like, well, she managed to sit in that chair mostly. But even to the point they didn't give me a physical examination, because they could just see that I was just in a mess. So it was awful. But that ticked a box. And then, because we were employees, shareholders and directors, there was almost 3 lots of the process to go through. And the first part was the Employment Tribunal. Now, the person that suspended us was our non-exec director.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Who was told to.
Okay.
The person that ran the investigation was the investor's daughter.
Oh, wow.
And her husband, who was a golf pro.
So nothing to do with employment law, HR.
and him, and all facilitated by our right-hand woman, our director of care and nursing, and our next door but one neighbour who was our finance manager, and she still lives next door but one. She was the first person outside of my house to meet Gracie for the first time when I brought her back from the hospital when she was born. Like, we'd been friends for 14 years, and money talks, right? So they were all in on it. This guy went, this is what we're doing. And they went, okay, you're paying our wages. We'll do whatever you want. And it was like, it was just, when I think about it, I think if someone had said to me, Claire's gone on holiday, this is what we're going to do, I'd phone you up and say, cancel your flight. We're going to face this out. No, none of it. It was all done in the background. So Mark went to that meeting. Then he had to jump through all the hoops. I didn't go. I didn't go to any of it. I just said I was sick. Here's all the notes. Classified as disabled. You need to make allowances or whatever, a suitable
adjustments.
Or
reasonable adjustments.
Reasonable adjustments for disability. Didn't do that. So
wow, that's coming from a care organisation.
Yeah. Honest to God, Claire, you couldn't write it. So we weren't allowed to communicate with any other staff. So on the last day, the day that we got sacked, Mark sent an email to everyone saying, look, this is what's happened to us. Just so that you know, it's been an absolute honour to build this business, to lead it, do all the rest of it. I need to now focus on my family, keeping them safe, but we will fight it, and hopefully one day we'll meet again. Boom, that was it. So then they went legal about that. But by then it didn't matter because, bring it on. So we had to then go through the employment tribunal, but because some changes in the tribunal system, there was a massive wait for it. So we had to wait about a year to get to tribunal. And in that time, obviously I was sick and needed to get well, but also had all this stuff going on in the background, the legals and the cost of the legals. And the legals cost us in the region of £400,000 in the end. We didn't have £400,000. Everything was in the business. And that's what they were hoping. They'd think they can't afford to fight it, so we'll just have this business, right? I can't talk about the values and stuff for legal reasons, but let's just say it was worth fighting for. Because it was everything. Yeah. We'd put everything into it. So we got sacked. We went to tribunal. I don't think they thought we'd ever go to tribunal. We had an amazing legal team. Our solicitor was amazing. They could not believe the shit that had gone on. They couldn't. And we had an amazing barrister as well. And he was just like, and this is barristers all over, they take the emotion out and they just go to law and fact. And I'm a one energy, Claire, so I can see through the holes all of the times. But he was in a league of his own. And we sat in tribunal for 15 days to listen. Wow. I was just gobsmacking. It was just gobsmacking. It was like they'd come for a day out, like a day at the seaside. The staff were there in the tribunal, like with almost like, let's see. So it's almost like, what were they being told?
Yeah.
It was like, we're here fighting for our
livelihood.
Livelihood.
And your life.
And they're sat there like it's a jolly day out. No respect for the law, no respect for any of it. And they just tripped themselves up so much. It was just so obvious. It was so contrived. And to the point where when we were going through all the discovery process, so the discovery is where you have to give all of your evidence and they've got to give it back. We applied to through the Information Commissioner's Office. It's called
what's protection.
It's all of that, and it's
the Information Freedom Act.
Freedom of Information Act. Yeah. So went to the guy where the non-exec worked. I want everything with my name on it. Every bit of communication with my name on it. I want it. So again, they came back, but playing for time. it's too much information. Well, not really. Go and get it. So literally we did all that. Did it for the company as well. They said, we can't do that. Yeah, you can. And it was literally, we were pushing for all of the information all of the time. And the Information Commissioner's Office found that they were lacking. They'd failed in their obligations. Now, our Director of Care and Nursing, was the only person that could have done it, because she's the only person that was able to, under the DBS process, to have access to all that information. Anyway, she denied having knowledge of it. She denied all of that. And we also reported to the CQC, because she'd made the investor, when we got sacked, the directors became her, the investor, and the daughters of the investor. And they made him, the investor, the registered person from a CQC perspective. And they did that without him having DBS clearance.
Wow. So loads of flaws.
Just so many flaws. And I was like, well, you can't do that, because these are vulnerable people. He's not got his DBS check. So she'd phone CQC and say, yeah, he has. I've made the phone call and I've spoken to CQC. But she'd signed the document to say that she hadn't. And it was all this sort of stuff. So I'd then put a complaint into the Nursing and Midwifery Council saying, look, this is what's happening. Got a real concern about this stuff. Data isn't being managed. And in care and nursing, if it isn't written down, it hasn't happened. And so the fact that she'd said, no, there was no issue with the information being recorded, well, that was a lie, because she'd already been found by ICO that hadn't happened. The fact that she'd had a meeting, there's loads of stuff. She'd had a meeting with a patient's parents and had the investor's daughter in as a witness. It's like me pulling you off the street. She had nothing to do. And again, so they've come back and said, well, that was because the patients wanted some randomer to come and sit on the meeting. It just all didn't add up.
Yeah.
So that went off. Didn't hear anything from them. So it was almost like we were flogging a dead horse, really. It felt like flogging a dead horse. But luckily, the judge and the panel in the tribunal saw right through them. And things to the point like they said that it was her, the Director of Care and Nursing, that had gone to the investor and said that she was concerned about the way that the business was being managed. That's what it said in her statement. And all of their stuff was about, she'd gone to him to say that she was concerned about certain things. Anyway, in cross-exam, so when you go to court, you have to swear either on the Bible or affirm that this is your witness statement. Is this all yours? Is that your signature? Yes. We all did it. She did exactly the same. So she's being cross-examined, and so they said, so you went to raise these concerns, and she said, no, I didn't. No, and he said, are you sure?
Because she signed to say she had.
But they're very clever. They don't say that. They don't make it that clear. They just go, so you sure about that? Yeah, no, it wasn't that. He'd asked if we could go for a coffee, and he asked me. Okay, so you didn't go to him using the words in the statement? No. So the judge says, so this, can I just take you to page whatever of the statement? Yeah. Is that your signature there? Yeah. And you see there it says, these are your words. Yeah. And you've signed that. Yeah. Did you write that statement? She went, no, the lawyers did. Now, this is the nurse in charge of nursing, governed by a code of conduct for the Nursing and Midwifery Council. If you've signed it, it's yours. And if you've not written it down, it didn't happen. And she signed a legal document that said all of those words were hers.
And then just said
in court,
the lawyers wrote it.
The lawyers wrote it.
And I've signed it.
And so it just all started to unravel. And then something else happened, and they said, have you got the date wrong on this document? Because you've written here 2019. And they went, no. The solicitor said we needed some evidence, so we got some evidence written out. 2 years after, we've been dismissed. Like literally, literally bonkers. They said that we didn't have a signing in book. Is that your signature? Yeah. Okay, that's all on the signing. So there was just so much. And then bottom line is that the judge, the panel saw right through them, but we did 15 days. And then we then had to go away and then waited a month or so for the thing. And we'd won hands down, and there was no reason. There's a clause in employment law, something called Polke versus something, it's basically based on if the investigation had been done properly and wisely, would you have all of that?
Yeah.
And then they use that for the compensation. They reduce it. So they go, well, actually, they might have had a case to answer. And basically they found that we'd done nothing wrong, right? We'd done nothing wrong. And that the reason for our dismissal was because the investor wanted us out. That was it. Because we challenged him. That was it. But by then, we're gone. Mm-hmm. We're not going back into that business.
How many years after you'd been sacked did that try? But like, how long?
It was just over 2 years, I think it was. About 2 years, 2019.
So in that 2 years, it was just...
And it's things like we had... Mark fought tooth and nail for it. He had a hydrotherapy pool put in one of the homes, and it sounds little, and it was a pain in the arse to manage. It was expensive to manage, but the freedom of those young people, the sounds coming from there when they're out of the wheelchairs and free in that water, was worth all of that. And then we had to stop following them in the end on Facebook. They'd filled it in and turned it into another room. Money. Yeah. So it was always for them about the money. Anyway, so karma's got a funny way. We then enter into a pandemic. And do we really want to be managing 3 nursing homes with really sick, vulnerable people through a global pandemic? No thanks. And it was almost like, thank God that happened. Thank you, universe, for sending us that. Thank you for all of that. So we had to do that. Then we had to go through the other legal stuff with corporate lawyers. And then that's the stuff that we're not allowed to talk about. But everything else is in the public domain. All of the stuff is in the public domain. We were awarded full compensation. We were awarded the top levels of everything. But we'd been living for 2 years on nothing. So it wasn't like we were like quids in. It was almost like, right, well, we can breathe and we can pay our bills. But like in our local paper, we're in the paper as we're in employment tribunal and blah, blah, blah. And her next door but one sat there in I call it the mausoleum because she doesn't bloody leave it. And you just think some people have just got no moral compass. And it just makes me so sad. And I wrote her a letter at the time.
This is your neighbour who was the finance controller. Yeah.
I wrote her a letter at the time. I didn't send it because everything that was sent just got sent through to the new God. But my dad wrote to her.
Did he?
My dad wrote to her and told her that she should move, and that how despicable she was, and that how somebody that was a friend for 14 years that had no moral compass could do that. And she then, the next day, when my dad had sent that, the company brought round and they put cameras in her house because she said that he'd threatened her. So my dad came to the tribunal as well, and he said, I didn't threaten her. I was just very honest. This is what she's done, and and she had no moral compass. I'm a 70-year-old man. What am I going to do? Truth hurts. But again, they all thought they had his backup. So they did. She had cameras put in. And she just lives in that cocoon in the corner now.
What must it be like to live like that? Because that's like such a life, like of there's just no trust in your life. You're not trusting anyone because obviously you don't trust yourself.
No, it's just, yeah, I don't know. And I try not to think about it. I've had to cut off because if I think about it, then it just takes me into not self. It's almost like
but the way that she's living now is
that's
probably
her.
not a way to live. But yeah,
Oh no, hideous.
That she must live in such a low level of trust or self-worth and respect for.
And
it's
you know that
sad
word, let them.
Yeah.
Let them. And it's almost that is just let them. But it's having to look at her look at that house every day. Anyway, that's.
But your house is up for sale.
The house is up for sale, yeah. So that's that side of things. But then, what happened? Like we had carers and nurses that lived round by us, and everyone just cut off. We cut off everyone. We blocked everybody because everything that we were doing. I remember because I'm a shit cook. So we had because we had no money because we were living. Everything had gone into the thing. Our kitchen needed a new ceiling, so we got aquaboard and put that on the ceiling for the time being. And then I had cleaned the whole house one day, and Gracie had said, "Oh, Mum, will you make broccoli soup?" So I said, "Yeah, of course I will." So I cleaned the house, put the broccoli soup on, went to the office in doing some bits, and then went on the school run. It must be like 3 hours.
Did you forget the broccoli soup?
Yeah, so Mark sent a picture with all the ceiling had collapsed, obviously, and went and a burnt pan saying, "Your soup's done," like that. Anyway, so he put it on Facebook, and that was brought up in court actually. And he went like, because they made a point because they were watching everything we were doing. They were watching us, and they brought that up in court, and they went, "Yeah, we laughed at that." And our barrister said that's really caring for a caring profession to laugh at that. People's misfortune, things like that. So, and her over the road, she'd be feeding back saying, "Yeah, I'm not sure what they're doing because he's not left the house for a few days." It was awful. Anyway, so we get on with our life. We get on with our life.
It must have been so hard, like for cutting off from staff and family.
Because we literally did everything for them. Anyway, we have to park it and move on. So 5 years later, when the NMC then contact us and say, right, this has now come to the front of the Nursing and Midwifery Council.
Okay, yeah.
So we've looked at this and we have sent it to her, and she's shocked. She's shocked and disappointed that this is happening to her. And she's struggling with anxiety, and that she's got an unblemished record. And we're just vindictive and disgruntled ex-employees. And this is the bit that I can't, that I struggle with. Does she still believe we're disgruntled ex-employees? We did nothing wrong. It's there in black and white. We did nothing wrong. And she was on the side that lied and manipulated the whole process. And we are disgruntled.
I genuinely think that that's her reality. That's what she believes.
That is absolutely her reality. And in there, because I'm a one, what I just told you about, you said this had been done, yet here's the evidence where you've signed a piece of paper to say
it's been done.
It's been done. And it hasn't. Not. And there's the fact. And it's actually a nurse and somebody else that reviews this stuff. So, and the other thing was around, there was a few things that were raised, and that they found that she hadn't answered properly. So she's had an opportunity to respond. And then the last thing they do is go, okay, well, let's have a look at hindsight then. If it came up again, would you do anything differently? And she's basically gone, no, I wouldn't do anything differently. So then they've gone back to say, well, if you wouldn't have done anything differently, then we've got more of an issue because the attitude, because here's the facts speak for themselves that you have done wrong and you would do it all again. So there's absolutely a case to answer. And I'm thinking, are you thick? Mm-hmm. Are you really that thick?
Lack of emotional intelligence, absolutely. Like
serious
self-awareness.
Intelligence, never mind emotional intelligence. And so apparently the business has been sold now. It's been sold. And apparently she's on redundancy leave. She'll have had a payoff probably, but that's not my decision. But she she now has to face a fitness to practice hearing. If that's what she chooses, she might accept their answer, or she might go to hearing. And if she goes to hearing, we have to go and give evidence, which I'll do gladly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't wish I don't wish any bad on anyone.
Yeah.
But what she's feeling now
Mm-hmm.
is a tiny, tiny proportion of what we went through as a whole family. And part of me, because of my soul purpose is in 42 and it's in cycles, it's almost like I have to see things to the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote to the CQC and said, all that stuff that you ignored me about, here you go, have that. I don't want you to do anything. I don't want you to write to me. I just want you to know, here's the facts. Here's the legal documents. Here's the facts. And here's the NMC. Do with that what you will.
And when was that?
That was a few weeks ago.
Okay. So the CQC sent you an email.
No, the NMC sent me an email.
It was the NMC that sent you the email to say that they were taking that further. And then you've sent that to the CQC, the Care Quality Commission.
All of that stuff, all of those concerns that I had through 2017 to 2019 have now been upheld. Here's the evidence. Again, I might never hear from them, but then if that person comes up on their radar again, there's proof there that person isn't fit
to practice.
Well, in my opinion, I'd be very careful because that's what the NMC say, but we'll let them do their thing. So, and then so that was that, right? That was that. But it brought up so much other stuff.
Yeah.
It was almost like, okay, so is that when I started to dilute myself down? These questions. Is that when... So I was in a mastermind. Remember, I was in a mastermind, and I did a post in the private mastermind group, and the owner of the mastermind took the post down. I was raging, Claire. I told you about this before. I was raging, and it was her bat and her ball, and that's absolutely fine. But for me, again, to be shut down, I put it down to my generational trauma at the time. Because my ancestors, my grandma and my great-grandma fled Nazi-occupied Vienna in the war, in the Second World War. And so I think, well, they have fled persecution and they've risked their life for their beliefs.
For freedom.
And I'm going into a safe space, speaking my truth, which wasn't bad. It was just my truth.
Yeah.
And somebody with power, with money, with influence, took it down. I thought that was about the ancestral trauma. And it, you know what? It might have been to a point. But then when this has happened, I'm thinking, I stood up again to somebody with a name in business, to all of the ombudsmans and all of the regulators and all of the money men, and I lost everything. So that, and then I started thinking, well, is it to do that or is it to do with that? When did that happen? And it's almost like questioning the whole thing. When did I start not speaking out, not speaking my truth? And this last few months I've not been online. I know we've done the podcast, but people go, oh, when we pop up, we go, oh, it's nice to see you. You've not been around. No, because I feel like bits of me have been whittled away. Because almost like by speaking your truth, someone's always going to cut you down.
Yeah.
And in the online space in which we work for some of the time, which is why we choose to work in the corporate world, because it's not in the online space so much, is that there's always someone ready to cut the legs out from underneath you. And I think subliminally, That's why I've kept quiet.
Yeah.
And even the stuff around our trial about, our clinical trial about getting well. There's those people that say, well, you're talking bollocks, you're not a doctor. It's almost like not having the fight and going, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right, we're not. Although we know how powerful it is. We know how bloody brilliant the work that we do is. But when someone says something, speaking out, the belief, obviously the innate belief is then you lose everything. So what's the best way? To not speak out. But I'm being called to speak, but I've got to do the work. And that's why.
And when you say you've got to do the work, what does the work look
Well,
like?
it's still triggering.
Yeah.
It's still triggering. And you see some people that have spoken out, and the facts are people speak out and their businesses are shut down because people of influence make that happen. So history and fact shows that that's the case. And it's almost like, have we got the strength and the will to fight it? I'm done fighting.
Same.
Do you know?
Yeah.
It's almost like, why does everything have to be a fight? It's almost like, this is our lane. This is our beliefs. This is what we're true to. We're not gonna quibble about one person. If you want to go and work with that, but go and work with them. You know what? But be really mindful about who you're working with, because there's so many charlatans out there. There's so many people that have done a quick course and then are turning it round and promising there's loads of that going on. When we speak out about it, we can look bitter. But it's because we see what's going on in the background. It's because we see people being taken advantage of, and I've got a massive issue with that. And even more recently, somebody that was considered a friend really showed another side to them, which was awful. And my way of dealing with that is, rather than confronting it, I just step away, just shut down. And again, there's that piece in my mind going on is, should I shut down or should I fight? Should I shut down or should I fight? I don't feel, I haven't got the energy to fight.
Well, they're shoulds, aren't they?
They're all shoulds, but I don't feel, but there are different ways that I can help.
Yep.
By supporting the people that need the support in a way that's going to help them. And that's ultimately what we do, but we can't do that for free. But yeah, so that's kind of where I am. So this is almost like it's thrown me this last few weeks, because it's really made me stop and think about when did this diluted version of me appear? Was it 7 years ago? Was it before that? Was it in the last, was it in the last few years in this online space? So it's that I've got to deal with and work with the triggers, because the triggers are obviously a trauma response that I thought I dealt with, but there's more.
Yeah, there's more to the onion to be peeled back, as with everyone. Yeah. I do know a really good book, though, that would help you.
Go on.
It's called The Fading Woman.
It's a belter, that, isn't it?
It's your book.
I know. And even that. Do you know what? Even that, Claire?
Again, you are a living, breathing, you do, you practice, you do most of the time practice what you preach. I know you haven't been doing lately because you've been triggered, that you've been going through your own journey, and I'm in the background cheering you on, but telling you that you need to rest and do some work and sit with it. But even just for you to go back to basics, and what you would say, what would Jules Kelly, the professional, say to someone who'd gone through your situation?
I get it. Go and do that. Go and read that book. Go through the thing. And it is about going back to basics and doing all the things. And like yesterday morning, I did it, and I went out for a walk, put my things on, went out, did my meditation in the morning, went out for a walk, I've done my journaling. All of that is about just keeping that practice, looking after myself. But I've got to do the trauma work. I have to do it because that just manifests as pain. And so, yeah, that's the bit of work that I do. So, yeah, I do practice what I preach. Obviously, when you're in the
But it goes
eye
to
of the
show
storm,
you that even you, we help other people, but even you are human. I'm human. We still go through things, and to give yourself some slack.
Yeah.
But showing other people, oh, you're all right. You've got a good life. None of us know what's going on behind closed doors, do we? And
no, and
for you to come and speak about this today is brilliant, because this shows other people that, oh, Jules isn't always the well, she's the one that fixes everything. Well, actually, sometimes Jules needs a little cuddle and a bit of help and a bit of support.
Yeah, and that's so true for a lot of us. A lot of us fives. Yeah, so there's a bit, the journey's ongoing. Obviously it's ongoing. It's just that this, as I even wrote to them last week to say, you know, I didn't realise that it had impacted me so much, but it has. And it has impacted every day because it's there. It's like, it's there. It needs to be shifted. And it's that work that I've got to do. And I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
You are.
And I wish for the people, all of those members of staff, that we fought for the pay rises when they said, no, we're not giving them anymore. All of those people that we stood up for, that listen and think, actually, that wasn't very nice. That wasn't very nice at all. I suppose there's that validation piece. I don't even know what I want. But the guy that the investor's dead, he died before the final court stuff was finished.
Was he old, young?
I guess he was 70s. But yeah, he died. Interestingly, it was my friend a friend of mine has just passed. And it was her that rang me to say that he'd passed because he was a member of her golf club. And now she's passed too. And all of that all of this came within the same 2 weeks. So it's a bit bonkers. So yeah, they got, what's the outcome of it? They sold a business, money. That's what it was, money.
And then he's passed on anyway. Yeah. And this goes back to that whole point about life and why go after. There's no need to go after and make life more painful for other people when we already have pain in our lives. It could be more joyful. You could be more kind. It's a cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And so that's what it was about. So when that came through and I was responding, I did a post. As I was typing it, I could feel the emotion coming up in my chest, and then I've just put, oh, you know what? This has got to be a blog, because it was too long for a post. So then I did it a blog. I said, if anyone wants it, and the amount of people that have come and said, oh my God, yeah, I get it. People that I don't even know that have said, I'm going through the same, or I've been through the same. I've not been, I'm just hoping that karma will do her thing, and I don't think it will, and you just got to think, well, you've just got to trust that it will. It will do it. It will. Every dog has its day, and it will come round. And for me, it's taken 5 years. I don't take any joy from it. Yeah. But it is like a validation that
light will always come to the darkness. That's what light is for. And it will shine whenever it's going to shine and bring it out.
Yeah. So that's me. But how's your week been?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, because I know it's something that you're working on, and it's deep rooted, and it literally is like rips out your character and tears it and throws it upside down, and even it's heartbreaking, isn't it, to know that integrity
for me is so much part of my design, and and who I am, and I'm here to help people. And so when you've got thick people that are unlawful, telling anyone that'll listen that we're complete opposite of that, that just...
It's soul destroying, isn't it? Yeah. And again, thank God you've got that energy to stand up for yourself and to have that ability as the investigator to dig deep and find out the information. Not
and thank God for Mark, really,
that.
because
for support. Again, tag team, isn't it? Because there's so many vulnerable people, or people that going through something similar, or just like that what's that one that was on a Christmas, the post office fee? Oh my God,
I said to you,
the rage in me for that was like, how can this happen? And it's like, someone, you've got that person that will keep standing there and be so resilient because it's not right. And by the end of that film, he was a lot older and he looked so tired, but he's done it because it wasn't right. And now those people are getting shown up for what what's truly happened and what they truly are. It's bizarre. Why? For me, again, it's bizarre why you would even let that happen in a family, in an organisation, of why it would need to go that far and not listen to people who need help, or who are being accused of something that's totally not right and not being investigated. But there's a lot of people who are scared because of the positions people hold, and they don't want to lose the job, and they've got bills to pay. Morally, it's just not right. But I get why people wouldn't want to speak up, but I know I would. Hence why I've left certain organisations, because I couldn't bear to see
exactly that. And I just think it's like that thing with the NMC. Would you do things differently? Like, just to take that step back and actually think about it from the other side. What would I do if I'd built this business and my right-hand woman was going to say they wouldn't do anything differently is just staggering.
And that's where I would go back to the lack of emotional intelligence, because one of them is the self-awareness, empathy, social skills.
All things that you'd think a nurse would have. Yeah.
Bizarre.
Yeah. Anyway, we have to let Karma do her thing, but I hope
good on you for fighting it, though. Good on you for holding up and gathering the evidence, because a lot of people would have just let that go. Maybe Karma does a thing anyway, but it's probably the action you've taken's brought it forward quicker, so that doesn't happen again to other people.
Yeah, and you know what? I know that the work that we do comes from a place of honesty and in integrity, and we're not here to rip people off or coerce them into signing up for stuff that they don't need or want. There's just not us. So yeah, that's this week's little chat.
Thank you. But we knew that would be a bit of a long one and a bit of an emotional one, but you did okay.
Thanks, love.
You did all right. We'll have a little squeeze afterwards, because you'll be crying again. We need to let the tears out. And definitely, I would definitely recommend the book, The Fading Woman by Jules Kelly. Sounds like what you need. You need to revisit that.
Do you know what? Even though that, again, writing my truth down, did I make a big song and dance over? No, I didn't. You know, people do book launches and this, that and the other. No, just sneak it out. Sneak it out.
Still, because what will people think? Though, didn't it?
What will those people think? Do you know?
Yeah. Maybe we relaunch it.
Yeah, maybe we dress up as a fading woman.
Just disappear.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love you, my friend.
I love you too, Queen.
So it's love and light from me.
And it's draw from me.